Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Blue. You are listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. After the Raptors lose 115 to 107, this episode is a presentation of ToonieBet Online, Sportsbook, and Casino. Man, best bet in the NBA right now. See the Raptors against a good team, take the good team. Not that hard. Actually, not that hard because Raptors, look, they will disappoint you in different ways. You know, there's a different scapegoat every night. Tonight, Brandon Ingram, step on up. Jamal Shead, step on up. But realistically, the outcome is the same. And it's a very predictable team at the moment. To be honest, if I had to say, I got to say, Raps looking a little boring right now. That's my review of this game. It was boring. Not that it wasn't fun to watch. You know, Raptors got off to a nice start, 15-5. Minnesota to take the first time out. Raptors were playing very aggressive defensively, game of runs, you know, like lots of good stuff. You know, it's always fun watching the Timberwolves. Like, I'm not saying that this game itself wasn't fun, but I mean, it's kind of boring in the sense that, like, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know, there's no mystery or intrigue when it comes to the Raptors as of right now. Against a bad team, they're going to pull it out. Against a good team, they're going to lose. It's really just a matter of, are they going to fold early or are they going to fold late? This one, they kind of folded twice because after their really good start to the game, again, up 15-5, up 19-7, then Raptors, by the end of the first quarter, are already down. Somehow, despite playing well to start the quarter and building a double-digit lead, they blew it all within one quarter, all within one half of a quarter. And then when you looked at the end of the game, I mean, Raps were just like, you know, they were just losing grip of the rope, and any sort of game plan, any sort of composure that they had went out the window. Turnovers, which is how the Raptors got the early advantage, was pressuring Minnesota into turnovers. And in the game, Minnesota's embarrassing the Raptors on these turnovers. Raptors defensively unable to keep guys out the paint, unable to get the rebound, kickouts for open threes, and, you know, Anthony Edwards dunking all over the team. You know, it wasn't boring in the basketball sense. It's just boring in the intrigue sense. You know exactly what is going to happen to this team, and you know, as the Raptors go on for the rest of the season, I think it's pretty clear they're going to keep going like this. They're not a bad team because they beat all the bad teams, but they're definitely not a good team either because they lose all the good teams. They're kind of really in that middle range. And by the way, with this loss here, the Raptors are now only one game up on the Philadelphia 76ers, and they are only 1.5 games up on the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat, who are in the 7-8 spots respectively. You know, I think thankfully the Raptors have some easier opponents coming up. Dallas, for example, coming up this weekend. Although I gotta say, Dallas, they almost upset the Magic actually. You know, Cooper Flag made a nice play, put them up one, but unfortunately missed a jumper, and Dallas couldn't defend in transition, and you know, Orlando streaked the other way and got the game winner. So, yeah, you know, they're still tough. Cooper Flag coming back from an injury, so we'll see sort of how the Raps cope with that. But yeah, I mean, you know, this game was really predictable, man, really predictable, and I think before even getting into any of the specifics of this game, because to be honest, I find them a little unpleasant, but I just think that to a large degree, this Raptors team is starting to lose their swagger, their confidence. They're starting to lose their belief a little bit. Like, they're starting to really buy into the idea that, like, they're bad against good teams. And it's starting to show in moments where there's just too many leaks on the group. You know, once the other team makes a push, the Raptors have no counterpunch. You know, Raptors can throw the first punch. Raptors can even stay in the fight, but they don't have that ability to sort of match and escalate and keep their composure. And when things start to go wrong, they all really start to collapse, and there's no leader that really steps up. That's where I really do feel like this team is starting to lose their swagger. I think for a lot of the year, they felt good. They felt like obviously they had a strong start to the season. They really affirmed what they were doing this year, made some progress. But I think of late, you're really starting to see that there is a golfing class. And whether you want to say it's all just talent or what team composition or coaching or whatever, I think undeniably, like when you see a team struggle to fight like this, that's a confidence issue. Like you can't tell me bad teams can never beat good teams. I'm sorry. I refuse to give this team like excuses or breaks because they've had enough of those. Like I was watching the Raptors, and again, like it got so boring. I'm like, all right, let me turn on the multi-view function on the League Pass, which allows you to watch 4 games at once. Because at the same time as the fourth quarter for the Raptors, which by the way, the Raptors were not in it, but as the same time as the fourth quarter, I'm like, wait, let me check the rest of the association. Well, wow, Warriors, Rockets going to overtime. Wow, Spurs, Pistons on right now. That's a great matchup. 2 of the best teams in the NBA. Wow, there's also the start of Nuggets, Lakers, which has been a great game for like the last 5 years. Let me go watch those other games in addition to the Raptors game. And one of the ones I was keeping track of was Warriors, Rockets. Warriors right now don't have Steph Curry. Warriors are literally running crunch time offense through Al Horford post up and Brandon Podziemski pull up threes. And they beat the Rockets tonight, right? Rockets are a good team. Warriors at the current state are terrible. But they managed to pull off a win. You can't just give me the same bullshit every time. And honestly, I think you're cheating both yourself and your faith in the Raptors to just give them this out that, oh, they don't have talent. Therefore, you can't crash out after games. You can't be a hard on them. Like, this is a real thing. And the more that we deny this problem for the team, the more that it's going to fester and continue to plague them. I think that, for this group, they're losing their confidence. And they've had a ton of time to regroup. They've had a lot of days off. The schedule has suddenly gone really light. The other day, Darko was talking about, I've been in heaven with how many practice days the Raptors have had. Well, what are they working on in those practice days to sort of reinforce those habits to build confidence? You're not really seeing that translate to the games. And it is starting to feel inevitable, how the Raptors are going to blow it. And this is the thing. There's going to be a different scapegoat every game. Because the more I think about it, the more it feels like the Raptors got to play a perfect game to even come away with one win against these good teams. The other game, against the Spurs, I was mad at RJ and Darko. Then the game against, who did they just lose to? The game against the Knicks, you're like, okay, I wish Scottie stepped up more offensively. The second unit wasn't going. Tonight, Brandon Ingram. I wish he played well because Brandon Ingram had one of his worst games of the season, and that was one of the big reasons why the Raptors lost. Ingram went 5 of 16 from the field for only 14 points. He was a minus 27, and I think probably worst of all was for back-to-back games now, he's had half-court violations, just struggling to bring the ball up half. Like, way too lackadaisical, especially from your leader, right? Like, that's inexcusable from anybody. Like, you have 8 seconds to bring the ball up. But back-to-back games in the fourth quarters, like those are killer. Ingram tonight missing, getting blocked, and then on the other end he ends up he turned the ball over, and on the other end he's down on McDaniels. McDaniels hits a 3 right in his eye. Raptors call timeout, and it's basically game over. I mean, the comeback wasn't really on, but it was over once Brandon Ingram came back into the game. And that's very frustrating because Brandon just had a great game against the Knicks last game, right? Last game against the Knicks, comes out 31 points, carrying most of the scoring. By the point it got to the fourth quarter, he's getting double teamed. You've done your job. You've done a lot of your job at that point if you're able to draw double teams. Follows it up with one of his most inconsistent games. Even had moments where he missed back-to-back free throws. For a really good shooter, that's just not enough for Brandon Ingram. And then I look at the rest of the roster tonight. Jamal Shead, man. I mean, it was evident from the start where, Raptors had the lead. Minnesota called a couple early timeouts, kind of started getting a couple buckets to go. Randall forced his way in there, and obviously can get a couple buckets here or there. But Raps still were getting good shots, and every time an open opportunity came to Jamal Shead, he just was missing them. Like, we're talking about open threes, we're talking about drives to the basket, we're talking about transition. He's also turned the ball over, trying to set up, easy post entry plays. He's also out there guarding, but not really affecting anything. And, I think, especially when you're the point guard, man, when you start to panic and when you start to go too erratic, as Jamal was clearly pressing tonight, it throws the whole team off the rhythm. Minus 19 for Jamal in 17 minutes. Basically, literally lost every single shift he was on. And by the end of the game, Darko basically, benched him, which is pretty rare. Jamal usually plays a focus in the fourth quarters, didn't come into the fourth quarter until garbage time tonight. Jakob Poeltl, continues to really, really be up and down. I mean, for a while there, it looked like, okay, Jacoby's like taking the spot. And now they're going to ride with Jacoby. And if they need another shooting guard, they'll go with Battle. But Grady Dick, you're in the doghouse. Well, Grady Dick in 3 minutes of garbage time had 8 points, which I think is more than Jacoby has had all week. Right? So that's got to be frustrating. Jacoby wasn't really a factor offensively or defensively. Kind of just goes out there and it doesn't affect the game. 17 minutes, you don't notice him on defense or offense. So, like, there's a different scapegoat every time. I don't really blame Darko too much. I mean, I know he had a challenge that he wasted in the first quarter. I mean, it was a play where a ball was sort of like ricocheting out of bounds, and it did look like Bones Highland was the last guy to tip it, but it was right beside Jakob Poeltl. Referee called it off of Jakob Poeltl. And Jacoby's like insistent. He's like asking for the review. And then Darko looks back at his bench. Probably the assistant coach there didn't have that play ready yet, and it's a snap decision because as soon as the other team inbounds the ball, the moment's over. And then he Ks and he uses a challenge, and unfortunately the call wasn't overturned, so the Raptors wasted their challenge in a meaningless moment in the first quarter, and they lose their timeout. My whole thing with that is just, if you can't say no to Jakob Poeltl in the first quarter, when can you say no, right? Like, you could blame whoever, blame Jacoby for being too insistent on the call, blame the assistant coach for not having the review ready enough, Eric Curry, maybe get the rewind 10 seconds button ready. But ultimately, as the coach, you got to say, like, hey, man, like, hey, how about we get back on defense? Let's get it back. It wasn't even a good play. Let's get it back. It's not a foul. It's not free throws. It's not an and one. It's not a clear, conclusive, overturnable play. Let's just go with it. I didn't see it. It's literally in the opposite corner, right? It happened on the far side, on the opposite side from the bench. So it's like a bad vantage point. Just move on. You know what I mean? But you getting rolled over by Jakob Poeltl, really? Come on, man. Like, I would understand if Brandon Ingram or Scottie Barnes came over and was like, challenge it, Darko, challenge it. But Jakob Poeltl, man, sometimes you got to say no. Sometimes you got to say, like, hey, play some defense, right? So, but like, again, like, I don't put this on Darko, I thought Scottie played energetically tonight. He had, it's a quiet game when you look at the box score, 16 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. I thought his energy was good. Once again, they asked him to guard the opposing star player. Last game, using most of his energy to chase Brunson around. This game, using most of his energy to chase Anthony Edwards around. I mean, the good thing I would say is that just like with Brunson, Ant didn't get the majority of his points against Scottie. Oh, but they got their points eventually, and I do think that playing that sort of shutdown role on the perimeter really takes away from what Scottie does best defensively, which is help at the basket. If you put Scottie at the best player, now Scottie can't help as much. And what Scottie does great is collecting stocks, league leader in stocks, I still think, with steals and blocks. How do you get steals and blocks? By helping, So, but I thought his energy was good. I thought Jakob had a okay game. I mean, minus 23 is not great for Jakob, but, I don't think any of that's really his fault. He continues to move physically well and, even dove on the floor for a loose ball tonight. And won the tip, which is good. Like, physically looks healthy, moved around, offensive rebounds, a little, like, push layup here or there, made his free throws. Like, I'm not too mad at that. RJ and IQ, for what this game demanded, actually did well for you, right? Like, I think the benchmark for a good RJ IQ game is, can they score 40 points between them efficiently? Tonight, they absolutely did that, right? RJ goes 9 of 14. IQ goes 6 of 10. They give you 6 combined threes as well. And, like, that's pretty good. RJ in particular was awesome. 25 points. Knocked down 4 or 5 from 3. Was super confident. Had a good plan of attack in the paint. Flummoxed Gobert at certain points where sometimes he would drive in, engage the help defender, and then throw it, the extra pass to the kick out 3 or to Jakob under the basket. Or sometimes when he got trapped under the basket, still found a miraculous way to sneak in around Gobert. Pretty impressive stuff. I thought RJ played great. Like I said, I trust his offense in tough games. When the games get really physical and tough, I trust his offense. And then IQ, even though it wasn't really like a dominant period, but I'm not going to argue against 18 points and 7 assists for Immanuel Quickley on just 6 of 10 shooting from the field. Got the foul line, continues to play off of 2 feet, drew some fouls. I think physically, defensively, he could have been better. I think he lost DiVincenzo a couple times, but I don't think he lost the matchup, which I think is kind of the key there is like, are you going to win that matchup? I thought he was slightly ahead in the matchup. Mamu, it's been quiet for Mamu recently, so it's good to see him off the bench. With some physicality, crashing the glass, finishing strong, playing fast in transition. He's kind of like our version of Naz Reid. Obviously, Naz Reid is better, but that's kind of like our version of Naz Reid. Kind of played Naz to an even. I know Naz had some bigger shots in terms of the moments, but 12 points versus 11 points for Sandro. I'm fine with that. But again, like, you kind of needed a perfect game from the team to even come close to, thinking of pinching this game away. And you didn't get that because Brandon was really poor and Jamal was like abysmal. So, what did I tell you though? It's just like, you can't afford anybody on the team to play bad, and it's like against a good team, and that's just not realistic. You're not going to play a perfect game. I don't know any game this season where the Raptors had every single player in the rotation play amazing. That's not going to happen, especially against good teams. So back to the central point was just like, this team's kind of boring right now. Like, it's good. I'm not trying to be ungrateful. I'm definitely not trying to crash out because, people crashed out and me crashing out. So I'm just going to keep it at this level, but and keep it about basketball and try to minimize sort of like what I feel about it to a certain degree. But like, it is just what it is. Like, this team is boring because they don't offer that intrigue. If they had a puncher's chance of winning these games, if they won like 1 in every 5 of these games, then I'm going to keep watching because I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what? Like, tonight might be the night, Minnesota, Raptors played them well last time. They just blew it in the fourth quarter, but they were competitive with them the whole game. Generally speaking, the Raptors played the Timberwolves well. Like, let me see it. Well, I saw it, and it was good for the first 6 minutes, and then the Raptors got, pushed aside. And, that's to me where it gets boring. It's like, they got to find some kind of way to like recapture their swagger, recapture their form, and maintain their focus, their intensity throughout the game. The way they open the game is not the way they close the game. And what's sad to me is that they lost that intensity within like 6 minutes. After a couple timeouts, the other team adjusts and it's over, and especially as we go towards the last month of the season here, there's only like, I think 5 weeks left in the season before the playoffs. Can the Raptors hold on to their playoff position? Because right now it's starting to look pretty bad. I made the analogy before, but the Raptors season, as in a macro sense, if you were to boil it down, it's basically the Raptors, based on their hot start in the first quarter of the season, have carried a double-digit lead into the final quarter of the season. And if the macro is going to reflect the micro, which is that the Raptors, drop every fourth quarter lead, all of a sudden you're starting to sweat because in the fourth quarter of the Raptors season, you're starting to feel like the Raptors are trying to protect the lead, which they have been really poor at in general. But like, again, in the last 5 weeks of the season, there's good basketball on every night. That's what the NBA does. They stack all their premium matchups for when the NFL season is over. So March, April, there's some really good matchups. And again, like on a night like tonight, I'm watching Warriors Rockets. I got another eye on Spurs Pistons. Right now, as a function of doing the pod, I'm not watching Lakers Nuggets. These are all other good games, on a consistent basis. And I just, for the Raptors, it's like, you can't be boring, because if you are going to be boring, People have other options, man. Like most people have 1-2 hours a night to watch a game, and most people are going to go with the Raps because we're going to be loyal and we are, diehard fans. Otherwise, why would you be watching this? But I don't know. My eye was starting to wander, man. My eye was starting to wander. So, that's really all I have to say. I mean, otherwise, Minnesota, tough ass team. I'll be rooting for this team in the playoffs. They made upgrades at the deadline that were meaningful. Another thing you could say is like, okay, going into the stretch run, where the Raptors going to be serious about their efforts? Well, you look at the other teams in the conference, the Celtics. They go out there and add Nikola Vucevic. Actually, it was terrible last night, but Vucevic, is a good upgrade for them. Plus, they know they have Jason Tatum coming back, who's going to come back on Friday. The Knicks, okay, they're like, okay, what can we do at the trade deadline? Not too many options in terms of flexibility, but we'll get a Jose Alvarado, who I think, is a really nice veteran piece for them. And he's been great for the Knicks as a second unit guy. The Cavs, they're like, hey, man, we've been underperforming all year. Okay, we give up on Darius Garland, who we once took the 4th pick on, and we're going to get James Harden in. James Harden, I think, wasn't he fractured his finger or whatever? He's still playing through it, still playing great. Now the Cavs are a consistent team. They might even end up with the 3rd seed at this point, based on how they're playing. A lot of teams have made upgrades. Even the Hornets below them. The Hornets were like, hey, we're actually like low-key an elite team now, so let's go out there and treat ourselves like that, even though we're well under 500. Let's go get a Kobe White. Kobe White comes off the bench. Kobe White will start for the Raps, like I've said many times, but Kobe White, was added to their rotation. You look at the Timberwolves tonight, how great did Ayo Dosumnu look, That's a guy that the Raptors have played a ton, against Chicago. There's always been a nice player in there. I think he's really matured and grown into this sort of like perfect kind of in-between player that I think the Timberwolves need. They lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker in free agency last year because of their salary constraints. They're a little too expensive. While they went out there at the trade deadline, they replaced him right away with Ayo Dosumnu. Now, he doesn't score as much as Nickeil, but I think he defends a little bit better, is a little bit stronger. I thought, Ayo was a nice addition to them. Raptors, well, we made the salary dump trade, which, was sensible for sure. And they did explore paths to sort of improvement. Ultimately, they couldn't get a deal done because they didn't have the right contracts or whatever. And ultimately, they add Trace Jackson-Davis, who could potentially be an upgrade, especially on a night where Colin Murray-Boyles doesn't play. But instead of playing Trace, the Raptors go with Jonathan Mobo. It's like, what? I'm not going to lie to you. I was not expecting to see first quarter Jonathan Mobo. And honestly, credit to Mobo. He played, he was fine. He wasn't the problem here tonight. He was energetic and got a block and got a rebound and, did energy stuff, which is kind of what he's there for. But it's like, what did we actually use the trade deadline for? We used it for accounting. We didn't use it for improving the team. And that's where I feel like there is just such a message that all of the whole season has come with, which is just, we're kind of happy to be here. We're in year 2. Don't expect too much of us. Don't chase expectations of us. We play well, but hey, don't get too excited. It was like, all right, I'm not getting too excited. At this point, after watching 60 plus of these, I'm not excited. I'm bored. And that's my big review of the game. So let's take a quick break. We'll hear from one of our beloved sponsors, and then when we come back, we'll take your questions.
This segment is brought to you by Table Fare and Social. Get your pregame bites and after-work drinks at Table.
It's a great location, right across the street from the arena and just steps away from Union Station and the Metrolinx bus terminal.
Will, I love my wedge salad, but there's plenty of options at Table. What should we have next?
Oh, we could have salad for days, my friend.
Oh, you're talking about salad days? I love salad days, man. They got a different salad for every day of the week. You can never get tired of the options there.
Oh yeah, I heard about this place. This was your go-to lunch spot forever. You always said the lettuce was so crispy.
Man, it's so crispy and fresh, and now this can be your go-to meal before Raptors games.
I like that. Grab a pregame salad at Table Fare and Social right across from the arena. Okay, we're going to take your questions. Karem has been collecting them. Bro, did you star 41 questions? What's up with you, man? Why? I'm not taking 41 questions, bro. Get out of here, man. I got a life, man. I can't take 41. I appreciate how much activity there is. And I know people are obviously upset after losses. I get it, but 41 is a crazy number, bro. We gotta pick and choose. Let's first get to the money. Late to class sends in $2. What do you think the main problem is? The bench? Okay, I'm gonna say this. I feel like the main problem is there's two main problems. I feel like they're lacking in the top end talent department, as in I don't truly feel like there's a takeover star on the team. And, you know, when you go into these battles against Brunson and Ant, you got to worry about them every single play. You got to have 2-3 game plans against them. Who's going to guard them with the starters? Who's going to guard them with the bench? Where's the help going to come from when they guard this play? How they guard this play? How do they guard that play? And then a lot of times they still score in spite of that. We don't have that. Okay, we just don't. And, you know, I'm not trying to put any of the Raptors down, in particular Scottie and Brandon, our two all-stars. I'm very proud of you guys. But start to feel like second and third options offensively, okay? Definitely not that 1A. When you see it, you know. Then there's no debate. Raptors wouldn't be 4-17 against top 10 teams in the NBA if those guys took over any of those games. Okay, any of the 17. And then I think on the other end, a lot of the second unit guys start to look shaky. Now, I actually think some of the second unit guys being shaky is a downstream effect of what the top guys look like, because the better your top end guys look like, the more defenses are tilted that way. The better decision makers they are as number one guys, the more they're able to set up even more open shots. And so I do think that, like, to a larger degree, the better your number one guy is, the worse your number 8 guy can be, because number one's going to do more and make life easier for everyone else. There is that to be said, but I also think that some of these guys look a little bit too young in the moment, man. I mean, the playoffs haven't even started yet. You know, we're not even talking about games that matter. In the do or die type of sense, you know, well, I'm starting to see Jamal look really shaky. I'm starting to see Mamu look inconsistent, and I'm starting to see Jacoby really, really disappear from games. And some of that can't be too surprising. I mean, you know, you look at it, they're young, they're inexperienced, they've never been in this position before. And better players than them have struggled with some of this, but realistically, you kind of also have to push past it at a certain degree. You know, I'm not Darko. I'm not in the business of giving excuses. They don't interest me. They just fill time and placate you. But I think it's best to diagnose the problem and just try to get to work on them as soon as possible, and just live with sort of what's missing. But when I see this, I'm just like, youth can't be the only explanation. You know, when the Raps won the championship, Fred was in his third year. Pascal was in his third year. You know, when OG hit the 3 to set up the tying scenario before LeBron hit the LeBronto shot, OG was in the second year, you know, already was closing games. You know, if we want to go across the league, OKC's a very young team. San Antonio's a very young team. Detroit's a very young team. Those teams are going to win 55, 60 games. So you can hide behind youth, or you can just address the fact that some of these guys haven't been good enough and they need to hit that next level. Physically, mentally, you know, skill-wise, whatever it is. And that's coming from a guy who I really like all three of those guys. Mamu has been, you know, a great addition to the team. He's been a big part of why the Raptors are in this position at the moment. And he went from a guy signed for the biennial exception, basically just a little bit more than a minimum, and became too important at work. Now when he struggles, people notice. You know, no one noticed when Mamu struggled before. He didn't matter to the teams that he played on. He wasn't consequential, okay, to the result. And now he is. Jamal Shead, fan favorite. Everyone loves him. I love him. It's great, you know. But fact of the matter is, you can't roll into these matchups and your point guard is not just like scared to score, but incapable of scoring, and also gets so pressed that he ends up turning the ball over, and compounds the issue. And then Jacoby just straight up disappears from some of these games. I like all these guys. It's not personal. It's just they got to be better. You know, like RJ told me at practice the other day, just keep being fair. You know, like it's not a personal thing. I'm just trying to be fair to all of you guys. Another question here. Would love to see Darko redirect 1% of his yelling at refs energy into yelling at the Raptors. Well, you know, again, I don't think that this is like everything, but when I saw that he caved to Jakob Poeltl begging for the review, I'm like, dude, come on, man. Dude, I'm sorry. Jacoby's like the 8th man on the team. You can't just be like, oh, okay, I'll do it. Like, no, man, no. Stand up for yourself, Darko. Hold your ground, man. Hold your ground. Like all the sassiness that you have for the media, all the fury that you have the referees, channel some of that towards the players, man. I believe it, man. I believe you can do it. Question for Will and anyone. If they end up a play-in team but get a top 4 pick, is that a successful season? Yes, of course, man. I mean, okay, successful, man. I think they needed this season to have enough affirmation that things are going right, and then they need the crucible that is the playoffs to sort of test to see, you know, are they going to be able to sort of, you know, who's going to rise to the challenge and who's going to break under the challenge, and that is going to inform some of the decision making going forward. So I'm not even against this plan. This season, the best plan was this. You know, clearly nobody really wanted to make a trade with the Raptors. There wasn't a clear upgrade out there. We even went through the trade deadline. Was there a trade that the Raptors should have, quote unquote, intercepted and topped that offer and brought that guy in? I don't think so. So, like, in the absence of going all in on something that, you know, isn't that strong, you know, you ride the course. So I'm not against that. But I do think they needed to have some level of affirmation that what they're doing is working. And like I said, the Raptors have taken a step forward this year, but it was, I would say it was the easiest step. And I'm not trying to like take away credit from the team, but I'm just trying to say that a lot of the improvements this year are the relatively low-hanging fruit. And what I meant by that was you have, if you're going to improve your roster or your win total, number one, you got to bring in consequential talent. They did that with Brandon Ingram, and Mamu and CB were good additions too. But obviously Brandon Ingram was a big addition. Next, you're going to need better health. And, you know, say what you want with the Raps. I know RJ and Yak missed some time. Largely been healthy, okay? Especially the top 2. So they got better health than they were in previous years. And then number 3, they stopped tanking. So all the games that they were blowing and literally giving away on purpose, they stopped doing that. Those are, if you were going to say, how do I get the Raptors to 500 and slightly above 500? Those are the 3 things I would do. And the Raptors have done that. Pick the low-hanging fruit. The hard part now comes with, how do I get a number 1 option on a team that doesn't have one? And how do I compete with the top-end teams? And how do I improve my end of my roster to improve and compete with these meaningful teams? We'll see, man. We'll see. Like I said, like they did the easy first step. I credit them for making it. I credit them for working hard and being dedicated towards Darko's program. But the hard work comes after this, not before this. Another question here. I still can't believe this team won 9 in a row at one point this season. It feels like a light year since we have consistently won. I mean, I think, you know, to that point, they were playing an easier schedule, but also I think B, they were also like playing with a totally different swagger than I think they are right now. There was a different sense of belief than they have right now, and yeah, I think it's noticeable. It really is noticeable. But I do think that there is better within this. Like I think that they played well below what they could have tonight. So I don't think they're resigned to their fate. You know what I mean? Sometimes if it's a lie, you gotta fight on that lie. You know, I love that line from The Wire. Yak was invisible on defense. I think that, like, he's always struggled with the Randall matchup. I'm not sure why, but even against the Knicks back in the day when Randall was a Knick, like, he really struggled to guard Randall. I think it's the combination of physicality and perimeter game. I think Yak gives him a little bit too much credit for what Randall could do from the three-point line. I would rather play him a little bit more down. That's just me personally, but yeah, I thought Yak was actually fine. He's not a big, like, he's not going to change the game, but I thought he was fine. He was about average in this game, maybe slightly above average. Next comment. I worry that Darko was too easy on these guys. Like Ime Udoka would have been a much better coach if he didn't go to Houston instead. I do wonder. I do actually really wonder if if Ime was still available, given his connections with Masai, if he would have come to Toronto. I think Ime looked at Houston and saw that was the best situation, and Houston had all that money in free agency. They went out there that year and got Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet, obviously off the Raptors. They also saw the young talent there. They've been accumulating, so I think they went there. I think you've also asked Houston Rockets fans, so they're not particularly happy with Ime. He's a little Nick Nursey in a couple ways, so yeah. But yes, a sterner, harder coach. Like if you had a Missoula with this team, I think the Raptors are much better than they are right now, and I think a lot of players take steps forward with a coach who is that intense. Next comment. Scottie Barnes totally lacks any sort of aggression. He is way too casual on offense. I mean, man, I think this is like going on a couple years now. And I think that sometimes when you promise the world of any player, then they got to actually go out there and cash that check. It's a little bit like Draymond talking about the Warriors. Ultimately, it's going to be Steph that has to go win the game. And I think that the messaging from the team, in particular through Darko, about what Scottie's going to get into, I think there's one part about belief, and I think that like pumping a guy in confidence is great. But when people come out and say you're going to be the face of the league and you're going to be an MVP, people are going to believe it, and then they're going to expect it. I don't think that people would have expected any of those things without some of these proclamations. And then you have to sit with the dissonance of like, well, last couple games, okay, Brunson's got like 20 and 10, and he's getting double teamed and getting covered by Scottie, who did a good job on Brunson for the most part in their matchups. Then you see Anthony Edwards tonight, dunking on people, easy threes, and then on the flip side, I think that the limitation with Scottie offensively is that he doesn't really have a takeover gear. I think the structure of this team at times reminds me of some of the issues that the previous iteration had. I don't think that Fred VanVleet had a takeover gear. I don't think Pascal Siakam had a takeover gear. And, Scottie was there too, and I think at that time, especially because Scottie was younger and had more potential, and, there was a lot of blame. I was there for a lot of this. Like, conversations got so toxic around, like, these guys are holding him back. And then we had 2 years of Scottie being basically like, okay, these guys are gone. Or maybe a year and a half. Okay, more clearly a year and a half. But it's like enough games to be like, hey, do whatever you want with the ball. Go out there, shoot 30 times if you want to. One game I remember he shot, I think 2 or 13 from 3, maybe against the Hornets or something. Went down to practice, talked to Darko about it. I'm like, hey, what you think about Scottie taking 13 threes? And he's like, I don't think he took enough. I was like, wow, okay, so like you're giving the greenest of lights to the guy. Like he's not a takeover offensive guy. He doesn't have the skill set to do it, regardless of what the defense is sort of giving, whether that's like the quick burst athleticism, whether that's a super quick first step, whether that's the handle, or whether that's like the shoot over anybody type of jumper. Like those are kind of the advantages that you have in basketball, or just the straight size, which I think out of all the takeover abilities, maybe the size is the biggest portion, but he's still a wing at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like they have Gobert on the other side. It's not like Scottie's just going to like dunk every single time. He's not Shaq. But I think the bigger thing to me is like, even having said all that, I still think it's a mentality thing. Like if Scottie wanted to, he could score more. And I believe that. And I'm like, I said it a long time ago, many years ago, and it came across maybe as like, I'm doubting the kid because, and I understand, like people get really excited about people. Like I'm not trying to take that away from anybody, but I don't believe in like Pascal, Scottie, OG, or Pascal, Fred, OG. These guys like are denying the kid. Like Scottie can, again, like I said, if Scottie went out there tomorrow or the next game against Dallas on Sunday, and if he took 30 shots and went 9 of 30 or something, no one would even say a word. From like the coaches, players, front office, they won't say a word. because it's his team. He's allowed to, you know? So I know that the team doesn't always put the most quote unquote ideal situations around him. People always talk about like, okay, he doesn't have a, great playmaker next to him. He doesn't have a spacing five, you can always point to whatever, man. But I mean, I don't even see that urge consistently to take over every single time. And that to me is not on anyone else, and I don't want to keep putting on everyone else. I think some of that is just on Scottie, and he has the ability to be better than he is right now. He has the ability to make more of his skill set than he does right now. And sometimes I really don't feel like he is applying it to the full extent of what he has. Another comment here. Great to see RJ getting his game back, but man, his defense kills us sometimes. I don't even think his defense was that bad tonight. I think he was just straight up good. I think if you want to say his defense was average, I think that's, fair. But at least to my eye, there weren't like notable back cuts or all sorts of mistakes from RJ tonight. Certainly I've called it out, like against the Spurs game. I thought in the fourth quarter, he was responsible for most of those buckets, but I didn't think this was one of those games. I think it's okay sometimes to say like RJ had a really good game tonight. Like RJ scored, was tough, in terms of a guy who, like, it's crazy to me that like RJ is objectively not as talented as Scottie. Okay. And I'm not trying to be rude, but talent wise, Scottie has more talent than RJ. RJ in his head is like, has the mentality of a number one guy. Like, he's like, I'll just keep going. I'll keep scoring. I'll take the next shot. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to turn down a shot. I will make the next pass, but like, he's going to keep attacking in a way that I feel like that stubbornness has to be intrinsic to a player. Like, you watch Ant tonight. Ant had a literal interaction this year where he missed a shot, heavily contested over a double team. He was in front of the Timberwolves bench. His coach, Chris Finch, who's quite grouchy, and definitely in your face. He goes like, yo, Ant, pass the ball. And Ant turns back to his coach and yells, I'm not passing the ball. I'm not effing passing the ball. And then the next couple plays down, he hits a three right in the same spot. And he turns to his coach and said, I'm not passing the ball. Is it the most productive thing in the balance of a 48-minute game? No. But that gear has to be reached. And that stubbornness has to be there. And the one thing I would credit to RJ is for the type of weapons that he actually has in his game, he makes the most of it. And I thought tonight he was very good. Obviously tonight was because he shot the threes really well, but I think just in general, I see a toughness in RJ's offense that is admirable. And it's pretty rare for a guy who's the third option. Another comment here. Shead is a good bench point guard to have in the regular season, but has no chance of surviving against a good team in the playoffs. Well, I can't really argue that. I love Shead, but I can't really argue that right now. Sorry. If Mamu isn't hitting his shots, then he's just doing nothing out there. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think Mamu, I like tonight that he played with like really strong physicality. At one point, he looked like he almost Kevin Loved Naz Reid's arm out of his shoulder, but was crashing the glass, was playing physical around the basket. He did hit 1-3, but didn't have to rely on them too much. I think sometimes I think it's a confidence thing with Mamu, to be honest. And I think if you heard Darko talk about it enough, like they always talk about like fluffing up his confidence. He's a confidence player. But I do think that Mamu has to believe in his own hype. Like, out of anybody off the bench, I need him taking more shots than... Like, if someone off the bench takes more shots than Mamu, it's a bad game for Mamu. Because if anybody off the bench has to take a shot, it should be him, and not Jamal, and not Jacoby, and not whoever else, Battle, Grady, like anybody. You know what I mean? We needed a Ibaka-type player. We need a couple of things, man. You put Ibaka on this team, like, yes, he would help you in terms of, like, all the good things that Ibaka does, but, I think they need a couple different things to drop tonight, so. But, yes, I will welcome Serge back on the team. I also love players that have personality, man. Serge had a real confidence and aura about himself. One loss ahead of the play-in. One game left versus Orlando and 2 versus Miami are going to be huge. Going to fall to 8th if they lose those, and with the way Charlotte's playing. I mean, look, I don't think we need to just plot out an entire, line of how they might fall and plummet. It's certainly a possibility, but let's just see how it goes. I think that not overreacting, but like being too down because the Raptors is a bad teams. Like, don't worry, Raptors will play some bad teams coming up, and that'll inflate their roster, their standings again. So, gonna make decisions on Grady, Shed, RJ, Mamu, Temple need to go, and what they doing with Mobile. He ain't it either. Well, I mean, look, I'm like we went through the predictions, right? Like, how many guys will we trust in a playoff setting? Like, I think we got to 5.5. Yeah, if the Raptors want to keep building around this, and I don't think the Raptors should quit on it, so I think they should keep building around it. But if they keep building around it, then you have to turn some of these unproductive roster spots into productive ones. I think that's like very much stating the obvious. I know how sort of like plainly obvious I sound, but like that is what they need to do. And some of these spots, they aren't that particularly productive. So, Darko doesn't know how to stop the bleeding during the game. Yeah, I mean, to whatever extent you could ask a coach to do it. I mean, obviously, I think the biggest thing is probably his ability to control the lineup, and then his ability to use the timeouts, and then maybe what the play calling is after the timeouts. But I don't think he's helping, but I especially in this game, I can't really blame him. I really can't, you know. There's no point crashing out. Alex Wong had this as an auto loss from the recent pod. Good news, we got Mavs next. Yeah, I mean, you know, the Raptors, if they play a bad team, I think they're going to show up. Although Raptors are only 500 at home now, which is kind of unbelievable. I don't. How could you be a good team if you're 500 at home, man? That's actually unbelievable. But we'll see if the Raptors can protect home court. Dallas did get Cooper Flag back, and I think Clay had 7 threes. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, it's not the Mavs roster's that bad. I mean, their starting five tonight was Chris Middleton, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, Cooper Flag, Max Christie. And they brought like Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson off the bench. That's actually not even bad. Like, all things considered, it's not as bad as a tanking team should be. Do you know what I mean? So, but I do think they should win the game. I would say it's a must win, actually, to be honest. Next question here. Do you think the Raps sign anyone with their last spot? Our bench has been very off lately. I know that they're young and we're developing, but we're lacking a steady vet off the bench to control the floor. So, what this scenario is reminding me of is when the Raptors had tried to make a push previously, which was the 2023 season. And that's the year they got Jakob. But then they were like, well, they still need more guard help. And it's like, they got a free roster spot. What they're going to do? And then out of nowhere, one March afternoon, they're like, breaking news. The Toronto Raptors have added Will Barton. And, you know, that didn't really work, like, at all. I was pretty excited for Will. I think he made the rotation right away. Veteran scoring guard is exactly what they, like, the idea of what it was made sense, but it just didn't pan out. It's so hard to just grab guys off the waiver wire to add them to your team and have them fit with your team and have them contribute to your team in a meaningful way. I guess I wouldn't hate it. It's worth a shot, I suppose. If it does not working out, you can still cut them and you can still pivot to like plan B, which could just be converting one of your two-way guys. I do feel kind of bad for Elijah that he's, you know, been a good soldier all year. I mean, he was not nothing. He's a 37th pick, man. I mean, 37th pick, you know, like I was hoping they would get converted before this, you know, but what regardless, like, fine. You know, if you want to, you know, cause you're making a playoff push, you want to add a veteran bio guy, you know, try it, you know, go ahead, you know, but like who even are some of these names, you know, like it's, to me, there's a real strong sense that the Raps could go like back to essentially adding a Will Barton type. I think I was looking on Reddit and someone said that Grange suggested a couple names could be added with that 15 spot, you know, in the pregame. I think that what some of the names mentioned were like Lonzo Ball, Georges Niang, aka my body double, aka my game double, okay, and then Cole Anthony as targets. I mean, it's concerning to me. Out of all those guys, I'd probably go with Cole Anthony, but it is concerning to me that Cole Anthony burned out of 2 teams this year already. Like, how did that happen so quickly? Orlando's also a team that needed an offense. You know, he burned out of there as well. You know, it is kind of like a really weird thing to do to Jamal to be like, hey, man, we're going to bring in Cole Anthony. He's going to take your spot. But, I guess you could try it. But I out of all these, Niang, I mean, you already have like Jameson Battle. That's effectively the same thing. Lonzo has looked terrible this year. I don't know. If you can get healthy, good Lonzo, then all power to you. He's definitely the best player of these three, but he's had such a tough year. And then Cole, I don't know, man. These all feel like, okay, the Raptors are doing a redux on adding Will Barton out of nowhere. By the way, before we take the next question, I want you guys to know that basketball can be real stressful. I know you guys feeling that stress right now. I know you guys are, crashing out. I still see a lot of comments left, and we'll still get to more of your questions. But remind you guys that when basketball feels stressful to you, man, you already know the deal. You got to make the chill choice, my friends. Chill is always the winning play. And, of course, with Coors Light, game plan is simple. You see the Raptors got a good team on this schedule. Put a whole six-pack in that fridge. Wait for it to turn blue. Fourth quarter collapse comes around, pop out some of those bottles and just make the chill choice. You know what I mean? If you know what's going to happen with the team, you might as well enjoy it to the best ability. And of course, when the mountain turns blue, the beer is as cold and as refreshing as the Rockies themselves. So when the game heats up, why not make the chill choice by grabbing a crisp, refreshing Coors Light? Find Coors Light near you. Visit CoorsLightShop.ca. Celebrate responsibly, and you must be of legal drinking age. All right, we'll get to more of your questions. Here we go. Okay, let me just put this back in. Bottom line, Masai set this franchise back years with his Pascal and OG trades. Look at how much Bane and Bridges got moved for. Yes, that is... Well, first off, yes. I mean, those guys did get more in return. And I would say Pascal and OG are straight up better players than Bane and Bridges. I mean, I know OG's a better player than Bridges. They play for the same team, and OG's better. And I know Pascal's better than Bane because Pascal just won freaking Eastern Conference Finals MVP for the Pacers, and they've made it back to the conference finals in 2 years in a row before the Pacers all went to shit this year due to injuries. But I also think that, like, what's weird to me is, okay, you know what? The OG trade suggested the Raptors wanted immediate pieces back. And because they didn't get a first round pick, right? Like, first off, not getting a first round pick for OG is kind of nuts, but whatever. Like, you don't get a first round pick back for OG. You get back, though, two players that can step into your rotation in RJ and IQ. RJ was already under contract. IQ needed a contract. And obviously the Raptors gave IQ like a, pretty generous contract. But that suggested to me that they wanted to, like, do a retool rather than a rebuild, like a hard rebuild. The thing is, with the Pascal trade, they mostly got picks and then movable contracts that were not immediately valuable as players. Like you knew that, Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and Kyra Lewis Jr., these guys aren't going to be part of your team in any meaningful way. And then they flipped those into Brandon Ingram. So I think it's pretty clear. The Raptors wanted to retool. They didn't want to rebuild. And, sometimes when you skip that step, you make it even more imperative that you're able to keep making wins around the edges with less, less tools to sort of make it happen. Basically, you're committing yourself to building from the middle, which again, like, is not the worst thing. Like, because if you're looking at an example of a team that successfully built through the middle, you could look at your own franchise. The Toronto Raptors built through the middle in their previous tenure. But in order to do that successfully, you got to hit on all the margins. And when you look back on that team, what I mean by hit on all the margins, you have Gravis Vasquez, and you somehow flip him to a team really in need of a point guard, and you bring back the pick that becomes OG Anunoby, which you took with the 23rd pick, and then you take Norman Powell at like the 42nd pick. I mean, like, arguably value-wise, one expiring year for Gravis Vasquez, for OG and Norm, who played for you for 6+ years each. Incredible trade. Then you go in the next draft, you got the 9th pick, you take Jakob, which, I think it's still fair for the pick. Like, Jakob is, a 9th pick level player. But more importantly, you take Pascal Siakam with the 27th pick, and then you take Fred VanVleet undrafted, and you bring him into your program. They grow. All of a sudden you have a young bench that's able to contribute towards winning. You have a coach that's pushing you the whole time. You have 2 stars that aren't really number ones, but you're able to have regular seasons of success. You build the organization, the standing, the profile of the team. You go in the playoffs, you lose, obviously pretty famously to LeBron in pretty harrowing ways, but you have at the end of it enough assets to make, at least a really, really like opportunistic trade to get Kawhi, and obviously we see how that turned out. And of course, don't forget about the Marc Gasol trade as well. You had enough capital to do all of that. That's where, if you're going to build from the middle for the Raptors, you can't afford to miss. Part of the value of tanking is you give yourself extra picks, extra swings at it, extra lottery balls. You pick higher. It sort of cuts your margin. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, I have more wiggle room to make mistakes. To be honest, Jakob Poeltl has a 19th pick. Grady Dick is a 13th pick. They're about average, for their draft slots. There's no guarantees when you're picking that in that range, in that sort of teens range. Sometimes you get really good players. Sometimes you get players that bust out. They're somewhere in between that. But when you limit yourself to building from the middle, those guys got to hit like crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get an OG. You got to get a Pascal from those picks. And, that is expecting a lot. That's expecting them to repeat a masterpiece. But that is also the strategy you commit yourself to. So, yeah. We could talk strategy all day about this stuff too, though. Like, it's always like this. I said a couple days ago, if Giannis is available, I'm trading Scottie for him. Hate me later. Still not doing that. To be honest, I'm a little annoyed. This is not even completely. I don't know. I just stand behind it. Give me a younger Scottie who's healthier and with longer team control over Giannis. I don't think we're winning a title with Giannis anyway. $2 from Pro Bala. Why can't BI play make ball pressure fries him? I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I just see another level of intensity and focus from Brandon. A little too cool sometimes. I mean, 8-second violation. That's the definition of too cool. You can't play slower than that. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that he obviously is going to require a lot of attention, and I think the game plan is kind of out. Like, people know what type of matchup works best on him. Guys who can get under him, get into his handle, basically Lou Dort strategy. And I think Brandon's skilled enough to sort of play out of that, but to be honest, right now, it's like he's starting to wilt under that. And that, to me, is like, I think he's better than that. I truly think he's better than that. I actually have a really high opinion of Brandon and his skill set. So I'm not trying to just give him the out to say, like, oh, you can't do anything against that. Like, if Brandon can't score against a double team, that's fine. I don't even want him to. You draw a double team, you pass the ball. But getting picked like that, I mean, it's just, that ain't it. You know what I mean? Also, someone said this. Grady's a bust. Will stop playing it easy because you're media now. Oh, so I gotta be rude to people? Nah, come on now. Like, I don't think people gotta question, where I stand. Okay, you compare how forward I can be as media versus everyone else in the game. That's especially the people actually in the building with passes that have to talk to these people on a regular basis. I don't know. If you think I'm too soft, then none of this is for you. I really don't think so. Instant access, as having no leader on the court is another serious concern. Like, my God, they have no sense of direction when things get hard. I'm still hoping that Scottie grabs this thing by the neck and just pulls us through in some of these. And if he fails, he fails. I've seen Kyle Lowry fail in hilarious ways before, but I need a guy who will crawl through a guy's legs because he's that competitive. They asked, is Chucky a good playmaker? I don't watch 905 like that. Chucky, he's weird because the 905 is like, I feel like Chucky's like just throwing up like 10 threes no matter what in the 905 level. He is a decent playmaker. He's got a good handle. I'm actually really happy to see Chucky like now walking around without his crutch and stuff like that. He went through a knee surgery. He's definitely not going to factor into this season. I don't even think for the 905, to be honest. But I think they're going to keep looking at him, though. And he'll go into Summer League again, and he'll be in contention for a roster spot next year, and we'll see sort of how it goes. But, yeah. I like him though. I like him. Clearly the bench is a problem versus good teams. At least it's a fixable problem this summer. Some of this will be internal growth. Some of it might actually be done externally. I think some of it is a little bit of both. A little bit of both. You can add bench guys. I think that's the thing. Like you look at Minnesota, right? So, some of their bench problems this year, and they've had bench problems as well, but they add a Bones Highland. Bro, I seen Bones Highland playing a ball don't stop run this summer, like at TMU in Kerr Hall. Like it's a tiny ass gym. It's like a high school gym, or I guess it's literally a college gym, and he was in there dropping like 40 balls against Norm Powell. Anyone could have had that guy. You know what I mean? So, some of that was added by him. If you compare Bones Highland to anybody on the Raptors bench, he's a better bench scorer than anybody on the Raptors bench. He just is. And he was available for free. And you look at when they did make, they used some second round picks. They got Ayo Dosumnu. Obviously, that part of that is because he's an impending free agent. But like teams routinely add to the depth doing that. Aside from that, though, I think that you would really hope that at least one, if not two, of the guys you drafted in the late first, early second rounds are going to turn into legitimate playoff level contributors. And that's a high bar, man. And it just is. It just is a very high bar. Because, you looked at the other game. Like, I was watching, OKC versus the Knicks. And it was OKC versus the Nuggets. And the guy who took over the game wasn't Shea or Nikola Jokic. It was Alex Caruso. And Caruso's like their seventh guy, especially now Wallace is playing so well. Like Caruso's their seventh guy, you know what I mean? So, there's a pretty high bar to crack like a playoff level rotation guy. Like you look at, the Pacers. Like look how good freaking TJ McConnell was for the Pacers in their last two playoff runs. You look at the Celtics when they get Tatum back, bro, they're going to bring Peyton Pritchard off as their sixth man. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to be a playoff level rotation player, even if you're not starting. But that's some of the levels that you got to get to, So, might be worth considering that Darko communist ball isn't empowering anyone to be a true leader. That's actually interesting. That is actually interesting. Sometimes I do... Because, I thought about this when Brandon was asked, I think, after the Knicks game, what do the Knicks do differently in late game offense that the Raptors don't necessarily do? And I think Brandon's answer was pretty truthful, but, you could read it different ways in the sense of, he's like, well, the Knicks, they give the ball to their best player, and everyone else knows how to play off of that, basically. And they've been together for a long time, so they understand how to do that, which is 100% a fair statement. I don't think that people need to reach for any sort of, ulterior angle. Brandon's pretty transparent. He'll just say it straight up. You know what I mean? If he wanted to say, hey, give me the ball, he would have just said, give me the ball. We don't have to sort of interpret him, beyond what he literally says. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. I really wouldn't mind seeing more pick and roll plays come into the team now. Maybe more conventional types of offense. They've already kind of moved away from a lot of the stuff that he used to do. If you look at Yak's touches per game, they're way down as compared to the previous two seasons. They don't do as much of the post hub kind of stuff, elbow, little flex actions. They don't really do as much of those. I would argue they maybe should go back to some of those because to be honest, some of the stuff is pretty predictable, but yeah. I need to think a little bit longer on that. That's not something that I could just, instantly have an answer off the top of my head. But it's a good question. I really appreciate the question. Okay, Scottie's a +3 in this game. He finds a way to affect the game. People got to chill. He's not a scorer. And he'll never be at this point. I don't think that that's necessarily fair because I think people always move the goalpost with Scottie. Oh, there's a +3. I don't care he's a +3, man. I mean, it's nice. I'm not saying he did nothing. I'm not saying that he's terrible either. Those are not things that are being said. But Raps lost by 8 tonight. They keep losing to good teams. I'm not pointing to any man's plus-minus really in any sort of meaningful way, especially when it's so close to 0. I think that, when he's been advertised so strongly by the organization and almost, in a hyperbolic way by the coach, people have expectations. What are you going to... I'm just saying, no one was face of the league and people said they were +3. Come on now, so. Jamal needs the Grady treatment for a couple games until he gets his stuff together. Hey, you know what? The tough thing is, the tough thing with that is, who else is your point guard? I tonight, especially against the Timberwolves with how big they are across the board, I thought they might go with like a really wing heavy lineup, and they kind of did at certain points. Like, they had like a little bit of Jakob Immanuel. They keep sprinkling that in, and then sometimes they have a little bit of Mobile Immanuel, and that CMB out there, and Scottie and Bi, and basically a lot of wings. I think you rode this far with Jamal. Jamal has had a big hand in a lot of your wins this year. I don't think you abandoned him entirely. The difference with giving him my opposition to giving him the Grady treatment is I don't think Grady has been as consequential to the wins as Jamal has. So I think Jamal has earned more rope than Grady has. People say Scottie can run point. Sure. That's fine to me too. I will have to say, though, that the prevailing pattern when people just give Scottie the ball to run point is that he's not looking to attack as much, and he's mostly looking to set up other scorers off the ball. And I think that if we run him at point, I still want him to be aggressive. In fact, I want him to be more aggressive scoring. But, Will, when we start draft talk, because this is a tough watch, it's too late, my brother. It is too late, man. People aren't going to be tuning. No, I mean, listen, only reason to do draft talk in March is because you're tanking. Raptors are not tanking. And, it'd be exciting to discuss, like, who the Raptors could pick with the 19th pick or whatever, but come on now. Come on now. We committed to this, okay? We're in this for the fight. If it's a lie, we fight on this lie, but we got to fight, man. With 84 assistant coaches and an entire analytics department, it's incredibly pathetic how little the Raptors seem to understand about what makes good versus a bad challenge. You know what? I swear there has to be a better strategy. I swear that's a better strategy with challenges. But in previous years when they were tanking, I'm like, okay, you want to use the challenge as a motivational tool. We want to use the challenge as like a reaffirming our habits type of thing, like a teaching tool. It's fine, whatever. It's inconsequential, right? The games don't matter as much. When the games matter like this, and again, I can't believe Darko, saw Jacoby begging him and he folded. I'm sorry, no, bro, you gotta say no. It's just Jacoby, like, all due respect, but he's just a kid, man. He's a kid, man. Come on. So, we need to go back to looking at tape from the 8-game win streak early on in the season. We were pressing teams, jumping the full court off random dead balls and random press double teams. The ball movement was great. I think they actually did a lot of that to begin the game, which is why it's like so disappointing to see them drop off. But like, yeah, like they had that type of energy to start the game, and I was like, okay, this is different. Scottie looked way more energetic than previous games, and then it just faded. So, I think what's hard is they can't back off of that. When they're on their heels, they play really timid versus more aggressive, and that's just a lot of their character. Another question here. Problem is that BI can't run the offense. If he gets doubled, he can't make the read. He just coughs up the ball to the nearest guy or turns it over. I refuse to believe that. I'm sorry, but I do think that even if he's going to make basic reads, the Raptors just need to figure out what the spacing is around him and let him go to work. I'm not accepting that as an answer. I'm sorry. Will, is Darko the right coach for this team? I'm not convinced he is anymore. This is a prove year for everybody. You know what I mean? I think based on the evidence so far, I think that Raptors are way more likely to, extend Darko than they are to fire Darko. I think that he's done, generally speaking, a good job in the macro sense. Again, all the players adore him. There's no issues in the locker room. The young players are, well, I would say they're growing, but some of them are kind of, plateauing. But in any case, like, they're playing more cohesively, whatever you want to say. They've taken a step forward. Whether he's the coach that takes you all the way, though, we'll have to see. We need CMB back so bad. I mean, damn, bro, he's just a rookie with a bad thumb, man. Come on, we can't live and die with CMB to this degree. CMB will really help, though. CMB is just straight up better than most of the Raptors bench player. He might already be the Raptors best bench player, I wouldn't be concerned about Scottie scoring too much. B.I., RJ Quickley can go off at any time. This team needs to find that chemistry to get past these types of games with a win. Yak needs help. Okay. I don't mind that. Yo, by the way, I'm sorry. I keep occasionally looking at the live chat, and why are people talking about Ocha Abaji, bro? Like, what are we even doing, man? I hate this thing where players move on, and then people track their stats. They're like, oh my god, Ocha, can you see Ocha shooting 50% from three? Oh my god, brother, did we not see Ocha play for like 2 seasons? This guy is not able to create offense. The Raptors weren't going to re-sign him. They moved on from him. Congratulations on hitting 1 of every 2 corner threes for the Brooklyn Nets in tanking games, bro. I do not care. Like, what are we even doing? Like, there's other things to sort of hit at the team with, but we're finding like the smallest bits of like ammo that do not matter, man. Even people being like, did you see Julian Reese had 18 rebounds tonight and 17 points? Like, where were the Raptors on that? It's like, dog, they were playing the Utah Jazz in a game where the whole game was an exercise for Trae Young to get healthy and warm. I actually watched a bit of that too. Like, brother, let's just chill out, man. People are like, why didn't we convert Olivier Sarr? There's other things to sort of like, guys, what are we even doing, man? None of these guys would be even close to being productive to the Raptors. And in Iltray's case, it was proven like for the whole season that he was not productive for the Raptors. So yeah. Last comment here. Shed has not looked composed at all. Not to mention his shot making is at an all-time low. Is that a slump? Do you think teams are figuring him out? I think he's actually a little low on confidence right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he's a little low on confidence right now. Really young, really mature guys, but like, he's still human, and I think it's more is being expected of him than ever. Last year he had slumps too. Didn't notice because like games didn't matter, but now they do. And Jamal's tough, so that's why I trust for him to struggle is just to work his way out of it and to maintain his his perspective. Again, like Jamal and Mamu, when the team was winning, these guys were huge contributors. So they got to find a way. And some of that is obviously on the coaching, but a lot of that is just on the players themselves to sort of be tough. That's part of being an athlete. Is like all you do is face the most talented guys every single night. The tough will survive. So thanks for your questions. I thought that was actually a really, really nice round of questions. So I appreciate you guys. I don't know if we took 41, but we definitely took quite a few. By the way, looking ahead, because I'm very much in standings watch mode. I look at the standings on a consistent basis, and it is time now. And this segment is a presentation of ToonieBet Online, Sportsbook, and Casino. Thousands of slot games and live casino at your fingertips, and a sportsbook made for Ontario. Get your game on with ToonieBet. Man, tomorrow, man, I'm looking at this, and the game I got my eye on is the Charlotte Hornets, who are the hottest team in the NBA. They are truly devastating in how they have played basketball lately, and they take on the Miami Heat. It's actually a play-in battle. The Heat are also doing quite well as well recently, but the Hornets are 20-2 with their starting lineup of Moussa Diabate, Miles Bridges, who shouldn't be playing, but Lonzo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Kon Knipple. They have been steamrolling teams. In fact, the Hornets actually went out there and just smacked the Celtics last night. Like, literally was up 20 on them, like, for 3 quarters type of game. They've also smacked the Spurs. They smacked the Nuggets this year. They smacked OKC. They have more good wins than almost any team in the NBA. It's just very, very impressive. But in any case, I'm looking at the Hornets. The Hornets are actually favored plus 6.5. So they're minus 6.5. But I'm still taking the Hornets over the Heat, man. Hornets are a juggernaut. They're rolling. They're healthy. Everybody in the rotation is contributing. Charles Lee is not going to win Coach of the Year because I think that should go to Joe Mazzulla, but he should really be second because he has performed a miracle with the Charlotte Hornets franchise. So that's the game that I'll be looking at. But you can make sure to hit up ToonieBet.com for all your sports betting needs. ToonieBet is licensed and regulated by the AGCO and iGaming Ontario. 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Okay, let's get to the 3 stars and get out of this thing. So first star for this game, who would I give that to? I'll probably give it to RJ. RJ, 25 points, 6 rebounds. Didn't get an assist, but was super efficient, 9 of 14, 4 of 5 from 3. I think he's just getting healthier and healthier and getting back into rhythm. So hopefully he stays like this because I think this is a pretty consequential part of the team. Your second star is going to give that to... Not a lot of strong contenders tonight. I'm gonna give it to IQ, I guess. 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Didn't think he was particularly dominant. He had a nice little stretch there to start the fourth quarter, but overall, no complaints with the game. 18 points, 7 assists on 6 of 10 shooting in 30 minutes is pretty good. Your third star, I'll give it to Scottie. I think he, out of anybody, did the best job on Ant. Ultimately, Ant, was held to 22 points, which is lower than his career average. But, yeah, I mean, 16 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Not a special game from Scottie by any means, but I was happy to see him knock down the threes, which was nice. Hit 2 threes in the first quarter, and it's promising because his 3 has really been falling off for a couple months now. Your Gerald Henderson Award for who randomly torched the Raps. It's hard to pick, man, because everybody on the I feel really solidly about everybody on the Timberwolves, so everyone just kind of played to my expectation. I'll probably go with Ayo Dosumnu, though. I thought he gave them a really nice boost off the bench. Probably his best game for the Timberwolves since the trade. 13 points, 3 steals, a block. Just a nice little extra guard for them in a rotation that definitely needs one more guard to play both ends of the floor. So happy for Ayo. He gets to escape Chicago and move a couple hours west to Minnesota where they're going to make a good playoff run. So thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Me and Alex will be chopping it up. We'll talk a little Raps, but we'll go around the NBA as well. If you want your mood to come up, you should definitely tap into any episode featuring Alex. So that's it. Thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate you guys. And yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.